Hey neighbors, good afternoon. I'm in the shop finishing up the Valkyrie Man of War that I started the other day. And it's been a good morning. It's been a nice day so far. It's, I think, 30 degrees. Sun is shining, looking out the bay, looking at the mountains and the snow. We had church this morning, got the kids there and back. Got them all lunch, filled their tummies. Now they're outside playing in the snow and all things are well. Woke up this morning with a thought, and it's funny. You guys know I'm a pastor, so I went through the whole church thing, and now I've been Sunday morning, but now I've been stewing on this, and I'm out in the shop still thinking about it. And the question is, do we trust God? And I think for just a moment, no matter your perspective, your worldview, your bias, and maybe some of the tensions and struggles you've had with Christianity or my perspective towards God, just try to ask that question for a moment. Do we trust God? Or maybe another way to ask is, if we believe in a God, what is our baseline motivation for our relationship with Him? Almost every relationship we have cannot, rightfully so, cannot be based in just a trust-filled relationship. There's aspects of checking the right boxes, doing the right thing, making sure I'm meeting their needs, pleasing them, ensuring they please us. All of these intense, difficult relational dynamics. If you go to the Old Testament, which the Old Testament, again, as a pastor, I'll admit, the Old Testament is incredibly confusing. There's all sorts of context and stuff in there that I just don't understand, and I don't think we're really meant to understand. But you go to the Old Testament and there's this crazy narrative where a guy by the name of Moses is interacting face to face with God, with Yahweh. And that's what it actually says. It was as if God and Moses were talking face to face, which is crazy. What in the world would that be like? But it comes to this climax where Moses says, God, I want to see your glory. In other words, I want to see you for all that you are. I want to know you as much as anyone can know you. And God, kind of surprisingly, he says, okay, let's do this. I will show you. And he doesn't say, I'll show you my glory. He says, I will show you my goodness, which tells me the most glorifying thing about God is how good he is. That's for another day. So he says, meet me up on top of this mountain and I'll show you my goodness. So Moses does that. And just imagine climbing a mountain with the full expectation and anticipation of meeting the Creator God on top. Like that would be something else. But he gets to the top of the mountain and God's there waiting for him. And what we read next it's not a pastor's perspective. It's not a sermon. It's not a theologian's, next chapter and his description of God. What we get next is God's own words. It's his own self-description, Exodus 34, which, by the way, is the most quoted section of Scripture by Scripture itself. So it's the thing that the other authors of the Bible go back to and repeat the most, because I think they understood it. If God here is saying who he is, then we shouldn't try to define him any other way. We shouldn't use theology to try to define God. We should use his own words. Anyway, so he gets up on the mountain and we read this moment where God is describing himself and he says, I am compassion. I am mercy. I am slow to anger. I am loyal in love. And then the last line is crazy and it's beautiful and it's talking about God's justness. And I don't think it's some righteous, rigid, God is just, like most evangelicals interpret. I think it's got to be interpreted through the lens of his compassion and his mercy. So I read it more as God is the God who just will never give up. He'll pursue your sin for generations and generations because he deeply desires for your family line to be out of sin and to be experiencing flourishing. But is that who we really believe God is? Exodus 34. Or have we heard so many sermons and read so many systematic theology books about the angry wrath of God and the righteousness of God and the turn or burn aspects that I don't know that we ever actually see God speak of himself that way we certainly don't ever see Jesus act that way. So back to our question. Do we trust God? It reminds me of a book I've just worked through for the second or third time. It's called The Cure. If you haven't read it, you should read it. But he paints this picture of humanity going down this path, and all of a sudden the path comes to a fork. There's only two directions, and it's based out of this, what is your baseline motivation with God? So in one direction, it's pleasing God. Everything I do with God is based in the motive of I'm going to please him. I'm going to check the right boxes. If God calls this sin, I'm going to make sure I do it and don't do it. And if God calls this righteousness, I'm going to make sure I do it, all for the purpose of making him happy, because I don't want his wrath. I don't want his anger. I don't want his hostility. And the other fork, the other path, is just trust. I'm just trusting the good plan of a good father. And it's amazing to think about the implications of one or the other. I know it's a strong dichotomy and maybe a bit of a stretch, but the more I think about it, the more true I actually think it is. What are the implications of a relationship with the Creator God purely based out of pleasing him? Well, we don't really think he's good. We don't really think he's compassionate. We don't really think he's all that kind. We're just more afraid of what might happen if we don't please him, if he's unhappy with us. But I tell you what, if our relationship with him is based out of trust, that's all based out of who I, in my heart of hearts, really believe the character of God to be. He is good. He is kind. He is compassionate. And out of my deep love for who he is, I'm going to pursue his way of life. I'm going to do what he has called me to do. Even when I am uncertain, even when it seems scary, I'm going to pursue his way of life because I trust who he is that much. Anyway, I guess my fence line talk, my pastoral heart this afternoon, is God doesn't need you to please him. All throughout Scripture, the heartbeat is the thing he most wants is your heart. So the thing that will please him the most is you trusting his character, leaning in on who he is, what he's done for you, and who he's called you to be. So I hope you'll trust him today. And as I always say, I hope you're encouraged. We'll talk soon.